know. Hello.
How's it, guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. Thanks, Roland.
Hey, Rob.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Justice.
Hi.
Today's meeting is going to be super short, I think. So let's get into that sooner rather than later. Okay. Share out
Justice,
my.
do you want me to share my screen? Would that be helpful? I'm just taking
I
notes.
have a presentation with a couple of things, so it's
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that
very.
works.
Let me do that, and
Yeah.
then um,
Yeah, and if you're comfortable, like if it's shareable, I'd like to include your presentation in the notes. So just send it to me after the meeting.
I certainly will. Okay.
Awesome.
Hi everyone. Welcome to the Technical Steering Committee meeting for today, early April. Quick view on our agenda. As always, our antitrust policy, which I can put on the screen so long so that you can read it if you want to. We're going to go through our working group feedback. I think only Sandy is able to provide any feedback for us today. Scott is attending KubeCon in London as our CI/CD DevOps representative. So he's hopefully going to be learning some new tricks and tips for us, and we'll be able to bring that home so that we can continue to improve our product. And then we just have a quick overview of some of the work that is in flight, just to share with you what is currently in the pipeline. And then just at the end of this, quick discussion, I think, amongst ourselves about the frequency of this meeting in particular. And we can talk about that when that slide comes up at the end. This is our antitrust notice. You can read this in detail at lf-charities.org/antitrust-policy. Linux Foundation meetings involve participation by industry competitors such as yourselves, and it is the intention of the Linux Foundation to conduct all of its activities in accordance with the applicable antitrust and competition laws. It is therefore extremely important that attendees adhere to meeting agendas and be aware of and not participate in any activities that are prohibited under applicable US state, federal, or foreign antitrust or competition laws. If you want to know what these activities are, please visit the link And if you have any questions, you can contact either your own company legal counsel, or if you are a member of the Linux Foundation, feel free to contact Andrew Updegrove of the firm Gesmer Updegrove LLP, which provides legal counsel to the Linux Foundation. Please do not have any questions about the antitrust policy for me. I'm not a lawyer. Right. Kicking off, I think, Sandy, do you have a presentation for this, or do you just want to voice over the contribution guide feedback?
I'll just voice over.
Go for it.
So working group sessions are ongoing. We've had another one since the last TSC meeting. There is new content being delivered, and the current work in progress is a guide for building new rules, which Foley's currently working on. So that's in progress at the moment. And that's about all.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Work in progress. And as I mentioned, Scott is currently attending KubeCon in London. So he has attended quite a few sessions and is absorbing as much of the information there as he can. He will be back in 2 weeks, I suspect. Well, he's back at the end of this week, but he'll be in the CICD working group session next week, and then also the TSC the week after that. Maybe just also an apology from my side. I noted in my calendar today that there was actually a CICD working group scheduled. We did pop in briefly just to be able to fend people off if somebody had decided to attend. I think Sandy was there for the first few minutes, and we didn't have anybody show up. But if somebody did try and show up at the CICD working group session today and realized that the session was not running, apologies for that. As we see here, Scott is not available, and we may have neglected to actually cancel that session formally. Right. Quick overview of work in progress. So our requirements, specification, and design documentation for the case management and the investigation component for Tazama, predominantly and primarily for the COMISA project, but also available to the open source beyond that, is currently underway. We expect that requirement specification itself to be done in the next few weeks, at which point it will go through to the features development project for development and implementation. And then that brings us to the features development project itself as well. In our previous TSC, we did discuss a little bit about our roadmap. I would like to maybe check if anybody would like a more detailed review of the features and the functionality that is going to be coming up. I have not prepared that as a presentation today, but it might be worth sharing that with you at a future TSC if you would like a little bit more information. But that features development has now also commenced. We are currently doing the design and the requirement specification for a software development kit to make integration into other systems easier. But that is one of about 9 different deliverables that we are focusing on. So that project itself is also underway. And then we have kicked off and have made significant progress already in an update to the demo UI. Some minor changes, a couple of user interface improvements, but the biggest piece of that development is the implementation of the condition management subsystem. So we are integrating the demo UI that we had with the new event flow rule processor that we had built and released as part of version 2.1 of Tazama. So that project is also underway, and we expect that that should probably be done and ready to explore by the members of the TSC in about a month or so. And then the last piece on the list here is the configuration UI itself. That work is also being completed at the moment and will coincide with the implementation of the COMISA project in the next few months. And then just to also give you all a little bit of a heads up, so we are going to be embarking on a community-wide exercise to improve the documentation of a lot of our code and repositories. That is an exercise that we are not formally commissioning as a project, but we will be creating a number of community-oriented good first issue tasks across the system for each of the repositories. So if you or anybody from the community would like to pick up a particular repository and then volunteer to bring the documentation up to a higher standard, you are more than welcome to pick up one of those issues and then improve the documentation in a specific repository or a number of different repositories. So those user stories are going to be rolled out over the next couple of weeks. And then if you would like something to do, please feel free to pick up one of those issues and then contribute to the technical documentation. This is somewhat adjacent to the work that we are doing in the contribution guide itself as well. The contribution guide is anticipated to be able to give you some guidance in how to improve the documentation or to at least approach our documentation. But the work here is largely focused on documenting each of our repositories to a degree that it is accessible to especially new people to Tazama and our software and ecosystem. Before I move on, any questions here from anyone?
Justice, if I may,
Yeah.
in the process of improving the docs, one of the issues that I've realized exists is that it's difficult to understand like how to read the current Tazama documents. There's no like hierarchy or like getting started, or there's no read the docs, if you will. So what happens in a lot of open source communities is they adopt some tooling where you actually do your documentation instead of trying to do that directly in GitHub. A lot of it is integrated with GitHub, so you still maintain it there. But if someone new wants to come, there's a nice thing like the Mojo Loop documentation, for example. And because the problem now is if you read our documentation on their own, something like the authorlib that we very recently went through, is there's a lot of inherent knowledge of the platform that is not in that document, and then to rewrite it over and over in all the different pieces is what's required right now. Because if someone wants to use one piece, you expect everything to be documented there, but it's not very maintainable. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure if we've got some thoughts around that.
It was something that we had considered in the past. We actually looked at a number of the different tools like Read the Docs, or I can't remember what some of the others were, or even like a GitHub wiki, and we ultimately settled on creating almost a central document repository in our docs repository. And the intention was always for that docs repository to hand off to the individual repositories. What we tried to do is to strike a balance between co-locating the documentation that relates to a specific piece of code with the code itself. So that if somebody wanted to look at just a repository, then some of that code would be there. But your point is very valid in terms of there's so much additional background information that is sometimes required to understand the documentation for a particular repository. You almost need to give people an alternative entry point, which starts at the foundational knowledge. That foundational knowledge at the moment exists in the docs repository. I think part of what we are seeing coming out of the contribution guide itself is that format or that approach is not particularly accessible or user-friendly. So what we might actually have to do is to create some sort of centralized repository or something that can automatically render the markdown into a web page format that is a little bit more easily navigatable. What we can do, I suppose, is if we wanted to maybe have a discussion around the options and the opportunities that we have for improving the documentation, I think that is a great community activity as well. And it might be an opportunity then for us to improve that overall situation. Any suggestions from the floor on how we might want to approach that?
Just I've been behind Gitbook, so not necessarily how we get there, but using it as a product or tool.
What I would like to do is to get through the contribution guide working group project and at least get the bulk of that information done as well. And I think then maybe as a next phase, we can look at how do we actually publish that information in a repository or in a way that makes it useful and accessible to the community at large. But I don't want to lose track of this as a sort of a TSC or a documentation roadmap item for the future. So Sandy, could we please create a issue in the current docs repository to just investigate maybe some more accessible and user-friendly tooling for publishing our documentation in a better format?
Sure, I'll do that.
Cool. And then what I'd like to do is to bring that back to a future TOC when the contribution guide working group is coming to a close, so that we can then look at how do we take the documentation that we have produced as part of the contribution working group and then operationalize that into maybe a website or a wiki of some kind. Does that sound like it can work, Fali?
That sounds perfect. Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for throwing that on the pile. Appreciate it. Okay, any other questions, observations from anybody else on the work in progress or the working group itself? Okay, perfect. One last item on our agenda for today, logistics. So when we were in the throes of active features development, I think up to version 2.1 of Tazama, there was a lot of groundbreaking work that we were doing in Tazama, and we ended up having to bring a lot of that work back to the TSC for discussion and roundtable with all of the various participants. At the moment, we don't have that same volume of work, and I'm not too sure whether we should retain the current TSC frequency or not. The last couple of months have been a little bit sparse in terms of content, but again, with the features development project coming up, we may actually need to spend a little bit more time just reviewing and collaborating around some of those features so that we as a community can sign off on those features. So I'm not sure exactly whether the 2-week frequency that we currently have is too great or too little. I want to maybe just get a sense from everybody in the room whether or not you can see maybe more volume or content coming up in the next couple of months, and maybe just get a sense from you all if we should be reducing the frequency or if we should be retaining our current fortnightly frequency. Open to the floor, please.
Yeah, just as I'd suggest making it a monthly frequency, eh?
That's one vote for monthly.
I would second that.
And
So
seconded.
Justice, this is Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Hello. And good morning from Seattle to everybody. I would love for us to get a sense of the COMESA features schedule. It would be nice to not have to, sort of undertake review of all of them all at once, unless if that's how they're being delivered, then so be it. But I would think that perhaps that's not exactly what's going on, and some features might be available sooner. So anyway,
They are staggered.
yeah, so if the group could get a sense of, what that delivery schedule looks like, then I don't know if they're one-off meetings or if we need to handle them in our regular cadence. But again, it would be nice to not have to try to review, 12 features all at once.
That's a fair point. And also what is convenient about having a slot in the calendar is you don't have to try and round up people for a slot that is slightly out of cycle. What I can suggest is we are, I think, traveling. There's the Mojo Loop convening coming up, which is in 2 weeks' time. So when this slot would have naturally occurred, there's the Mojo Loop convening, and a lot of people are basically traveling all over the place. And it is also the eve of the Easter weekend. So that technical steering committee meeting will probably not happen anyway. And then the week after that, we are traveling, and I think almost everybody in the session now will be involved in the convening in the Philippines, which means that Thursday is probably already ruled out. But what I can then maybe suggest is, instead of having an entire month gap before we can even review the COMISA project deliverable schedule, should we have a interim TSC then next week, Thursday, before that long break, and use that as an opportunity to review the development work for the COMISA project?
I mean, I'd be game for it if we have a schedule that we feel good about by then. It depends on what we've got. Otherwise, I mean, that timeline seems like it could be something that folks can process offline.
Okay, let's do that. I like the idea of setting down a date that creates a deadline for the delivery of such a schedule. That's also useful. So let's see what, I know Josh is already working on that with the Paces Labs team.
Are you there?
And we may actually have something available that we can present. If not just the schedule, also maybe a breakdown of the features and the detail behind some of those features would also be useful. Foley?
Yeah, on the same topic, sort of, maybe we can sort of discuss maybe a format of this technical steering committee. Because if you want to do things like project updates, it's probably also a good idea to mention any support to maintenance features that has been worked on, and that will be worked on. So I don't know if something like that is what you want to bring to this table on top of any existing projects or POCs or things that's going on. I'm not sure if the idea is to present that here.
I think it would be, in particular, at least sort of a list of bug fixes or things that we are fixing in between the releases. This would be a good opportunity to communicate that to our community. So yes, I would like to maybe add that as a standing agenda item if there is something to report and some changes have been made to the system. Josh?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm switching between computers. So from Matt's point of view, Matt, for you, I'm working with Usama, the PACES kind of lead on the project to get you a view out of GitHub. So we take all the data out of there so that you can see the project roadmap and the delivery and the schedule. And he's working with me right now on it today. So you should get that view, I would say, by Monday or Tuesday with me and him working on it so that you can go anytime and look at it. And then you should be able to do that anytime. So you'll know where we stand at that.
Yeah, that's great. I don't necessarily need new or different tools or than the rest of them.
It would be in the same invite, or I would just send you a report from it so you have it. And we can kind of do it that way. But I just wanted you to know that that is coming.
Okay.
So the problem is there was a trigger with the GitHub piece, and since the plan was already put in GitHub, it didn't trigger into the other tools. So it was fun. But we figured it out, and that's coming for you.
Okay. Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, I think this group would be interested in that same
Absolutely.
thinking, and so great. So it does sound like there will be a schedule available next week if folks wanted to do a meeting about it. Otherwise, just a publication out to this group would be probably sufficient.
And
That's
Yes.
maybe a good point. Is this something that you guys would like to receive an almost like a report out on email, or would you like to have a email and a walkthrough in a TSC session, or would you just like a TSC session? Can we do a poll?
It's kind of nice to have a newsletter like thing. That you put that out there.
yeah,
I think
I'm happy to do that for you guys with the delivery and do kind of like a stakeholder forum email to all of you.
Let's start there. And then if there is appetite for sort of a walkthrough or a review of the content of that, then we can set up a session to do that as well. Does that work for everyone?
Good for me.
All righty, that sounds great. We love meetings that could be emails and then turn into emails. That's great. Awesome. And then that is very much the end of what we had to report back on for the TSC today. So thank you very much, everybody. Is there anything from anybody else that they did want to raise or expect to raise today before I sign us off? I'll take that as a resounding no. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the evening, and then you'll hear from us again soon.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks all.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.